What would you say if I told you that a Kirby spin-off game that could only be played with a single button was too intense for gamers? That sounds like clickbait, and it kind of is, but this is exactly what has happened to the original Kirby Air Ride back in 2003. Looking at the reviews of the game back in the day, you'll see a lot of reporters and journalists were more or less baffled with the game and weren't entirely sure what to make of it, which runs counter to the narrative that people have about the game nowadays. When people talk about the original Air Ride, it was always in a positive light, as the people who grew up with the game would regale the younger generations on how it was a maligned and misunderstood masterpiece of its time. So, naturally, people who missed out would want to know what all the hype was about, but had no reasonable way to try it themselves. Eventually, the demand and curiosity of this supposed hidden gem caught the eyes of HAL Laboratories, who saw an opportunity to make a fat stack of dosh, the same way a shark smells blood in the water. My guess is that HAL saw that Nintendo was in desperate need of captivating exclusives to rope in suckers like me, as well as titles to pad out their anemic launch lineup of their then upcoming Switch 2. So, in all likelihood, Nintendo would be the ones to foot the bill for development, and very conveniently, they also saw that Sakurai was wrapping up work on Smash Bros. Ultimate. Not only would they have the original creator on board, which would be a huge PR boost for the game, seeing how Sakurai has become somewhat of a celebrity among gamers, but it also means that Bandai would be the ones developing the title, as Sakurai still has close ties to that team. Between Nintendo writing the check and Bandai doing the actual development, this frees up HAL to dedicate their own money and resources to work on the next mainline Kirby game, while still providing a Kirby game to capitalize on the launch of what will surely be one of the most successful console launches in history. It seems like the pop stars aligned for Air Riders to enjoy the deserved success it never had. You'd think the release of the global test drive this past weekend would have been the thing to cement this game's success, but in a shocking plot twist, it turns out the game journalists from 2003 were right. The reception to Kirby Air Riders has been polarizing, to put it mildly, and complaints people have with the game echo the exact same sentiments that people from 20 years ago had with the original. So much so that people are canceling their pre-orders and changing their minds about this being a day one buy. To anyone that has never played the first title, City Trial feels like an absolutely incoherent mess of sights and sounds and sensations, where they have no idea what they're supposed to do, why they were supposed to do it, why things were happening, and the amount of things that were happening. These poor bastards were feeling more lost and overwhelmed than a Christian boy at a furry orgy. So, they're just mindlessly running around the map, having no idea what's going on. The next thing they know, their dinky little star-shaped surfboard was now going so fast it was going plaid. It didn't matter that Sakurai spent the length of a feature film to explain every detail of what this game was about. None of that would prepare gamers for the battery item. Gamers are not ready for Kirby Air Riders, and I'm not saying that to be all smug or to put people down or make claims about how Kirby fans are the true gaming master race, but I would like to point out how that phrase, gamers aren't ready for Kirby, could be applied to any title in the series, since most people are blissfully unaware that the series is filled with more eldritch horrors than Bloodborne, and have built-in challenge runs that are harder than Silksong. But that's fundamentally different from what's happening to the reception of Air Riders, because it's not just City Trial that people are struggling with, people have also been describing the regular racing mode as too fast, and that's just butt fucking wild to me. But you know what? Maybe it's just a me thing. Maybe I'm just desensitized to speed because I spent my childhood playing F-Zero, my teenage years playing Need for Speed, and my entire adult life trying to fill in the void that both those games left behind. It is at least very revealing as to why Nintendo hasn't made a new F-Zero game in over 20 years, because clearly, gamers aren't ready for a new F-Zero either. The far more prevailing sim racers that now dominate the racing genre these days have been so watered down that people have absolutely no sense of what an actual good arcade racer feels like anymore. So I guess it's natural that when people only frame of reference as to what a good racing game is Mario Kart, and they come in expecting Mario Kart but with Kirby characters, I can see where they'd be thrown off by being introduced to an actual competent and competitive racing game, which also has an absolutely cracked out experiment attached to it. And it may sound like I'm ragging on normies, but again, this isn't a video trying to dunk on anyone. I'm just here to point out how fucking hilarious it is that the game with characters that look like this, designed around one button, is deemed too overstimulating for the modern Mountain Dew chugging, Dorito munching, marathoning COD till 6 AM hard R's #gamer. But the truth is, it's not actually their fault for not getting it. And it's not Air Riders' fault either. This is just the nature of niche games, and that's what Air Riders is and always has been. It's not a misunderstood hidden gem, it's the black licorice of gaming. History has already proven that this game was never going to click with general audiences because of how weird and out there it is. I think a lot of people are thrown off because this is a Sakurai game. But people, let's be real here. Most of you haven't actually played a real Sakurai game. You only played Smash Bros. And a very polished version of Smash at that. Most of y'all have never played his other games like Kid Icarus Uprising or Meteos. After his tenure of directing 2D Kirby games, you'll start to see a regular pattern in his games where he loves to take established genres and completely upend them by the roots to completely redefine what they could do. Even the original Smash Bros. Was part of this philosophy, and just like in his future games, its initial reception was mixed because fighting game fans had no idea what the fuck to do because of how different it was. Smash's early success was entirely carried by the novelty of having a game where Mario punches Pikachu. Sakurai was tired of making iterative Kirby sequels and wanted the chance to experiment more and see what more games could do. That's why he left HAL to go freelance after Air Ride. But the thing about experimental designs is that they are naturally not going to appeal to everyone, and that's okay. I'm fine with the fact that not everyone is going to click with Kirby Air Riders, and I think the rest of the Kirby fanbase shouldn't be panicking either. I don't think it's worth telling people they need to just put more time into the game just to get it. Someone literally compared this to League of Legends in the way that you have to absorb a lot of information before it all clicks, and my dude, comparing anything to League of Legends might as well be a death threat. If the game isn't hooking them in the first 5 minutes, it's probably not going to do it for them 50 hours later. And time is so limited, there's so many other games out there that are going to be more agreeable with each individual person that's going to give them better time. Telling people to just give it time and practice is just a more nicer way to tell people to get good. And we all know where that line of Reddit threads go. Straight into the dreaded, should Dark Souls have an easy mode debate? And the answer is no. It's always no. Why are we still having this discussion every time a game that's hard breaks into the mainstream? Games are for everyone, but not every game needs to be for everyone, because that's just the nature of art itself. If we want games to be taken seriously as art, then we need to be okay with the fact that not every game is going to be made for us. Not everyone enjoys horror games, but do we demand Resident Evil or Silent Hill remove all the horror elements just so Jerry from accounting, who's never touched a boob in his life, could play? No, we don't. So Why do we demand that hard games are made easier? All the time we are complaining about how mainstream AAA games are too samey and boring and borderlining on slop with how predictable and safe they are. Yet, as soon as a weirdo game like Air Riders or a hard game like Silksong comes around, suddenly those same people demanding for more creativity in the industry are like, why can't I play? Why can't I be good at the very beginning? I just wanna play too, guys. Why am I not allowed to say the N-word? Dude, just be honest with yourself and admit you don't enjoy hard games. It's 2025. There's no shame in admitting that, and no one should be shaming you for having a preference. What we shouldn't be doing is forcing our preferences on others. Dark Souls doesn't need an easy mode because the difficulty is the point. That is the game. If you just want to play a game like Dark Souls that isn't as challenging, instead of demanding Dark Souls need to change and robbing the fun away from the people that already love it, just play a different Souls-like game that's easier from the get-go. They exist. You have options. I've come to terms that I'm never going to be able to get into real-time strategy games because it's just not my jam. I find the micromanaging too stressful, and having the bases I worked so hard to build up getting demolished by swarms is just too frustrating for me to find fun. I do love Pikmin though, but am I going to demand that StarCraft or Age of Empires should be more like Pikmin so I can play them? No! That's so stupid! I recognize that there's a unique flavor of fun to be had in RTS games that's just not palatable to me, but I wouldn't want to take that fun away from the people that do love it just to appeal to my personal tastes. Kirby Air Riders is not going to be for everyone, and that's fine. It's still going to sell well regardless by the nature of it being an exclusive on a year one Switch DOS, and Kirby in general has such a wide appeal, especially among kids who are probably going to gravitate to this game a lot more than the crusty old adults. What with their hyperactive brains being able to keep up with the chaos and all. And maybe it's not going to be the Mario Kart killer we've been hoping for, but there really does need to be a game that dethrones that piece of shit. How can you charge $80 for an empty open world in an online mode that doesn't let you race on your own courses? Fuck you, Nintendo! The fact that this game exists at all, and it has the budget and content that it does, is a blessing, because not every niche game gets that kind of treatment. So I'm going to treasure this game, regardless of how many people are playing it, and I think all of us, whether we like the game or not, should appreciate that something so weird has gotten the opportunity to exist in the way it does, because the more weird games we have, the more chances that developers are allowed to create something different. That is what makes this industry and this hobby interesting, fresh, and fun.